Hi everyone, it's Sally Angelic, sharing my healing journey with you guys. As you know, I've already put a book out called Angels Embrace Me by Sally Angelic and it's available on Balboa Press bookstore or Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc, etc. Or there's a link on my Facebook page, and that just is just a sharing of the miracles and the joy and how I was able to open up to a greater healing. This healing happened back in February spiritual awakening experience happened in February 2009 on my 40th birthday, and the journey since then has been a roller coaster ride, and just a continuation of healing, a real deepening of healing, which I'm sharing with you. And since being in Canada, the healing has taken on a new level, a deeper level, and it involves transparency, authenticity. And so if I'm expressing here on radio, there might be some swearing, some tears and snot, and but it's all allowed. So I'm just warning you now, in case you have little ones with little ears that you don't wish to hear. So yeah, be warned that might happen. I don't know what's going to happen right now, what I'm even going to say, but you know, it's been another deep healing morning in Canada. My mind keeps going back to the experience when Jesus showed up to me in form, actually, and I got to be in heaven for what seemed like an eternity, actually. I go quiet because it can seem kind of crazy to the world and extreme, but I'm not interested in what you guys think of me. I don't care what anybody thinks of me, you know. I'm just sharing an experience. But what happens in that experience is that I got to remember who I really was. I looked into Jesus' eyes and I could see God, and there was no world anymore. There was no memory of it, no reference to it, not even a memory of Sally Ann, the body. There was nothing. It was just so bizarre, and of course you'd think, oh, if I had an experience and Jesus appeared, I'd have a list of questions to ask and answers and wanting to be here answers, but in the experience there was no questions asked, not one, because there wasn't even a questioner. Then of all the things that could have been wrong in Sally Ann's life, there was no Sally Ann. There was no life, there was no world, there was no anything. And so there was no question, and therefore no answer. But it was very, very deep, and very few words were spoken, and they didn't come from me. I say me, but I was one with him, so it gets really complicated to even talk about it. But Jesus spoke a few words, and I guess in my experience I was presented with a new choice, a choice actually, not a new choice, a choice to turn back to God and to follow Jesus out of hell, which, by the way, was just a place in my mind. It was a state of mind, actually, not even a place. And I recognise now there's a deeper truth underneath all this, that even though it appears while we're here it's the only choice we have, even that, in truth, we don't even need that choice, because we never left. We never left God, and we never left. So, but while I'm here in this experience of human form, there appears to be a choice, and it was offered to me. Follow Jesus out of hell, journey back to God, and of course I said yes. From that moment on, my life just flip-sided, completely upside down, and I knew I had this strength in me all my life, but I never knew what it was. And then I began to realise it was the strength of God. I mean, how could I have survived such a brutal experience without the strength of God in me? And so I knew about the strength of God, and I've come to understand the power. The power of God is immense. And a friend recently felt that power too, and she said it was like a freaking nuclear bomb going off. It's a power beyond all imagination. And I can feel this power. It's like, if I'm God's child and He's my Father, then He's holding my hand and He's dragging me forward, but not forward on a horizontal plane. It's like vertical. I'm being dragged up, and all these branches of the world are trying to latch onto me and clasp onto me, and like angels and angel stories and crystals and Reiki and books and healing and teaching and all of it, and every time it's like grasping at me. It's no, drop it, and I don't even have any choice, because I'm being dragged along at a rate of knots here, and it feels like I've said yes, and that's it now. That's it. That was my choice, and it's been made, and that's it. And in the branching of the road on page 477 of the course, it says, "It is but the first few steps along the right way that seem hard, for you have chosen. And although you still may think you can go back and make the other choice, this is not so. A choice made with God, or a choice made with the power of heaven to uphold it, cannot be undone. My yes cannot be undone. My way is decided now." And actually, I can feel that yes, and I can feel that power, actually, and it's immense, truly immense. And it appears all the worldly stuff's falling away, and like my husband, my money, my belongings, my job, my dog, my kids, my house, just everything is falling away. And the journey of those 4 years, I mean, it's a book in itself, which I am actually writing at the moment, and we'll be sharing it with you guys. But I know a lot of you have been following me and wondering when I became homeless in January, beginning of January, what will happen, and what's going to unfold for her next. Well, everything seemed to be falling away, and the house and the kids and the dog was literally the only things that I had left. And I decided that I'd kept the house for 4 years because it was God's will, and because I had these kids to look after, and of course He wanted me to have a home and a roof over my head. And so I told myself the house was never going to go because God wanted me to have it, although I did scream at Him to take it because it was a burden, and it never went. And so then I decided, oh well, I'll use the house in God's name. You know, He can use it, He can call it His, He can use it how He sees fit, and then when it's time to go, He can say it's time to go. And so I surrendered it completely. And it's funny because my ego, it patterns in my life always to isolate myself and think that my safety lie in my isolation. And so the home was like a private space to me. I didn't want to share it with anybody apart from my kids, and I didn't like having visitors or guests, and I just wanted it to be my own private space and my sanctuary where nobody else was allowed in. But when I handed this house over to God, I was instantly prompted by Spirit to invite this homeless traveller from the United States of America to come and stay in my house. And she stayed for 8 weeks, I think, and had other people come and stay since. So my egoic resistance was really getting flushed away, and the house started to be used in that way. And I was in complete flow, and everything was going tickety-boo. And I travelled England and Greece and Corfu. I travelled the world actually, but it was all about developing trust and flushing out ego and healing the mind, and even greater. And then when I started doing MMT, David Hoffmeister's MMT course, I started to scribe for them, which took me into a really deep place in my mind, and I was getting a lot of deep healing going on, and Spirit was like always prompting me to take MMT, but I didn't have the money. I was living on Providence, I didn't have the money to pay for the course. But then all of a sudden this opportunity to scribe the MMT course came, and so I was really thrilled that I was getting the healing through scribing. And then a miracle occurred, and I was given scholarship to MMT, which meant that I could be a fully fledged student of MMT, and it was all really very given and perfect. There was a lot of healing coming from the MMT, so deep. And there was a question if I wanted to serve God, or I wanted to be a real minister for God, and what was holding me back, what is holding me back, and what would have to go. And I didn't even have to think, it just, the word came out of my mouth. It was the house, and it had become hard work actually, just to keep it all afloat and keep everything going, and all the maintenance that was needed, and it was just too much. So it became a burden. And then I distinctly heard the question in my mind, which I knew was Spirit. If it goes, how would you like it to go? And I was like, well, I would like it, if it had to go, I'd just like to put a backpack on and walk out the house with my kids and my dog, and just leave and go to our next place, because I can't be bothered with all the legal hassles, the estate agents, the fees, the lawyers, the trying to sell it and all that stuff. I just didn't want the hassle. I just wanted to walk. And then this the way the repossession came through was like, it was so given that it would happen like that. And actually what happened was I did walk out with a backpack and my kids and my dog, and I began to really think, oh my God, this is so powerful. And I really need to be careful what I'm asking for here, because it's given. It really is given. And so, even though the house was going that way and it was always going to be repossessed, and I didn't have any choice in the matter, actually. I could feel it unfolding in that way, and it's like the Course says, a choice that has been made with the power of heaven to uphold it cannot be undone. Your way is decided. And this is the way that has been decided for me. And my small self, the small Sally Ann, the body, the ego, the Satan, the devil that clings to everything in this world and seems to be in opposition with God, it's not going to win any stories. It's got no choice in the matter now. I can't put on the face of innocence and turn on the waterworks and ask for the choice to be changed. It's not going to happen. And I felt that so much. As soon as I said, yes, okay, I'll let the house go, I'm saying yes to that. I fully saying yes. Because although we can't stop anything, we can procrastinate and we can delay, but when we do that, we get into a place in our mind that is quite hellish. It's quite painful. And real strength comes in letting go, not clinging on. It comes in the letting go of. So as soon as I let go and said yes to the house going, then there was these miracles started to occur, and Spirit was constantly telling me I needed to go to Canada. And they were telling me this for about 6 weeks, and I didn't understand why I had to go to Canada or what it was about, but I didn't have to understand. And I said, well, if this is part of my script and what's given, a part of the choice that's been made for me, then it'll happen. And it did happen. And I ended up in Canada last Christmas for 3 weeks, and 2 days before I left, this house was made available and was given to me like, it's yours to live in. And I knew I was flying back to the UK to a homeless situation, and so I just thought, whoa, this is so given, and it's so clear that I'm to be in this house, and I knew it. There was just a knowing that was beyond all explanation. And I was given steps, and I flew back to the UK, to the homeless situation. It appeared that I was going to rent this private house, and but though I was not feeling that there was going to be another home. It was like the swapping of one situation for another, which was the same. It didn't ever feel like it was going to happen. And actually I saw this vision, and like the clasp, the ball and chain. Well, the clasp was around my neck, the chain ran down my back, and I was literally dragging the house behind me. So I knew I had to let this go, this house, because it was literally a drain. But I never felt another home. And I almost thought, oh, my kids are going to be taken and I'm going to be left standing. And I felt that was going to happen in some way. I just felt it on a level. And then just shortly before we was contracted to get out of the house, it was snowing actually in the UK. That private rent house fell through, and there was to be no home to go to. But I still was at peace with that, and I just ended up leaving the house and going onto the street with my kids and my dog. And at the time I was given this little car, and I thought, oh, thank God for the car, because not only is it like shelter, but it's gonna get me from A to B, and it was like a real godsend. And I convinced myself, or I started to get the ego doubts coming in around staying in the house in Canada. And then it convinced me that, well, you know, you live in the UK, so wouldn't God house you in the UK? It's ridiculous to think there's a home for you in Canada when you don't live in Canada. You know, you were so clear on that, but your clarity's all wrong. It's all wrong, you know. Your place is in the UK and you're being silly. And so I actually swallowed it up line and sinker, actually. And I began to spin out. I'd taken up this old egoic pattern of isolation, doing things on my own, and of course I didn't have a computer or any Wi-Fi, so I was on the street. I couldn't connect with my mites or anyone, actually, and every time I tried to do, there seemed to be blocks all over the place. Yeah, in the 9 weeks that I was on the street, I was never, ever left comfortless. Yet still, I was in a place of hell in my mind. And even though I was in the hell, I felt this deep inner peace. And yet, it's hard to even describe how I can be in that situation and go through that process, but still be at peace. But I was. And it sounds almost crazy. And yet I was caught up in this illusion of hell. And I ended up with this really grotty B&B once, and it was disgusting, and the lady in charge was like, I don't know, some kind of a little Hitler. And then I had this message from Spirit again, and it was like, it stands to reason, doesn't it, that to escape from misery, you must first recognize it, about turn and walk away. And I thought that was my cue to leave the B&B, and actually I did, but then only into another experience, another illusion of hell. And I kept going from place to place to place to place, anywhere I could get shelter. And already one of my children had to leave his A-level course and go live somewhere miles away and be separate, and so that seemed to be quite a painful experience, and quite still. And then my other son he got separated from me, was staying with friends, and it was just me and my 9-year-old daughter and the dog, and yet still I put myself in this place. I should have been in Canada, you know. I just kept going from place to place to place to place, and I remember one night thinking, what next? And I'm feeling tired, and I was driving around, and I had the dog and my daughter, and I just ended up going up this motorway, and I pulled off the motorway, and there was a hotel, and it happened just to be a dog-friendly hotel that would take my dog. My dog was allowed in the room, and also free Wi-Fi. So I plugs in my laptop and settles everybody down, and we could only pay for one night, so I knew I'd be there for one night only, and I was guided to put my laptop on and leave it on, and I went to sleep, and I woke up at 5 a.m. I was really guided to walk over to the laptop, and as I walked over and sat down, my IM, my instant message box popped up, and my friend Nikita was saying, "Are you there? Are you there? We need to join. We need to join." And I thought, "Oh, thank God, one of my mites is here." And it was a really traumatic experience just trying to connect, because the Skype wouldn't connect, and I had to end up rejoining Skype from scratch, and then I had to shut down the computer and restart it before I could connect and join. And when I joined, it became obvious that I was meant to be in this house in Canada, and why wasn't I, and why was I putting myself in hell? And when I put myself in hell, it feels like, almost like I'm going to end up want to killing myself. And it's like, I so got the message, and like everything like seemed to become clear as soon as I joined again, and I was taken out of this spinning, and I was back on track. And then I said, okay, I'll do what needs to be done. And Spirit was instantly telling me, in the moment, your passports have expired. And I didn't even know where the passports were, because I didn't have any belongings left, just a little case with a few documents and papers in. And in my mind's eye, I knew that passport was with them documents, and I'd left these documents with a neighbour. So I drove over to the neighbours and I got the documents, and there, behold, was the passports. And although they hadn't expired, they only had 3 months left on them. And when I consulted the travel agency, they said I wouldn't be allowed to travel on a passport. It had to have 6 months on it. So in effect, they were invalid. So instantly, I picked up applications for the passports to be made, and I was making 2 applications, and I picked up 4. The lady said, "How many applications do you want?" And I said 4, and I don't know why I said 4, but I made 2 errors, and so I needed the extra 2, and so I could fill out the application again. But that was the first thing that I did, and it took around about 2 weeks for the passport application to come back, and so I knew I couldn't travel for 2 weeks, and I didn't really know where I was going to go during that 2 weeks. And there's one place on the planet, in my mind, I hated that place. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. It's the last place on earth I'd ever want to be or go. Guess what? Guess where I spent my last 2 weeks? Yeah, right in that place. Yep, I was guided to go there. And in going there, actually, there was a lot of love. I was received in love, and I was welcomed, and doors were opening, and there was shelter for me in a couple of places, and there was a lot of deep healing going on there. So it was all used. It was all used. Yeah, so I ended up in the last place that I ever wanted to be. And while I was waiting for my passports to come through, I'm aware this Spreaker is about to click off, and I will continue sharing with you guys in ACIM Transfer of Training Part 2. So I'll see you there.